What is up, everyone? Boshi here, back at it in Raid Shadow Legends, and we have a 10-time summon event going on along with a guaranteed champion event. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. Alright guys, so you heard right, we do have a 10-time summon event, which is the normal 10-time summon, but that's going to go alongside the summons rush for the Hurndig fusion. Now remember, in that summons rush, you will be able to earn that extra copy of one of the epic fusion pieces, so definitely make sure you're looking for that if you're looking for that extra copy. But alongside those two things, we do have a guaranteed champion event. So this is going to be very similar to what we did with the Countess Licks and the Ancient Shards, but this one is going to deal with Sacred Shards. So the guaranteed champion is going to be Helior. We'll go ahead and go over his kit in just a second, but I do want to explain how the guaranteed champion event works, just in case you don't know. So pretty much the limit is going to be 15 sacreds. So you're pretty much guaranteed a Helior by your 15th sacred. So let's say you open 14 sacreds and you don't get Helior, your 15th will be him, and it will not reset your mercy system. But if you do pull him on, let's say, your third shard, then the event is over for you and it just ends right there. You can continue to open sacreds, whatnot, but you're not going to be guaranteed an additional Helior at 15 or something like that. So that is how it works. Yes, it does suck that they decided to do this event after a 2-time sacred. So I would imagine to expect, shop deals with sacreds, even though sacred deals are typically never good. But yeah, maybe they'll have a good one out there. So now that that's explained, for the 10 times event, sorry, I'll go back in here. You will find all your normal information right here. So yeah, just keep your eye out for it. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump through Helior's kit real quick, and then we'll go into all the 10 times champions. So let's go ahead. So first off, Helior is a newer banner lord that has been added to the game recently. So he is a defensive type champion, but you're actually going to build him for damage, and you'll see why in just a second. So on the A1, we have Sunshine Halberd. Attack one enemy, increase this champion's defense by 5% if this attack is critical, and it stacks up to 20. So you're going to be able to pretty much stack this ability 4 times, and then once you've stacked it all the way, when he attacks, you will actually heal this champion for 75% of their defense, which is really cool, right? So possibly good solo champion. So after he's used his A1 4 times, he'll start healing himself for 75% of his defense. So then we have on the A2, Solar Blessing. Attack all enemies, places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns equal to 20% of the damage inflicted, and you can drop it down to a 3-turn cooldown and increase the damage with books. So this is where he is going to be more damage based. He's going to be a damage based defense champion because you want to do a bunch of damage and add a big shield to everyone. So it's really cool. On the A3, we have Harsh Light, transfers all debuffs from all allies to a target enemy, and then attacks an enemy with the default skill, which is his A1, allowing him to stack more defense and start healing sooner. And then converts this champion's resistance into additional accuracy when using this skill, and you can drop it down to a 3-turn cooldown. So you're going to need accuracy in order to transfer all your debuffs from your allies to that enemy, but the cool thing about this is you technically don't need to build any type of accuracy, you just build resistance on him, and that resistance will be converted into accuracy when using this ability, which is the only ability that actually needs accuracy to land. So pretty much you're going to build him with defense and resistance along with your normal stats like speed and health. But that is the kind of unique thing about him, is that you don't need accuracy. You can use a resistance banner, and it's going to be like using 2 different stats at once. And then on the passive, we have Intercessor. Whenever an ally that has 2 or more debuff is attacked, this champion will absorb 30% of the damage inflicted on that ally, which is really cool because stuff like defense weaken on one person, then you're taking some of that damage, making sure they survive, and he's going to be defense based, so he's going to barely take anything. And then he has an aura for increased ally resist in all battles by 60. So given his A3, because you're converting resistance to accuracy by default, with him in the lead spot getting his aura along with his base resist of 50, you're actually already at 110 accuracy when using the A3. So really unique champion, really cool champion, actually one that I've been wanting Unfortunately, it is based around a sacred event, so I don't know if I'll be participating in it, but he would definitely be a really cool pickup for a lot of people. So I would say worth it if you have the sacreds to burn. I wouldn't go out and break the bank for sacreds just to get him though. Alright guys, so let's go ahead into the 10 times champions. So all the 10 times champions are going to come from the Galleon Pack area. So first off, we're going to have Ogren, and it's going to be for Klodd Beastfeeder. So really cool, epic HP based champion. So on the A1 we have New Stabby Hand. Attack one enemy has a 30 or 50% chance if you book it of placing a decreased crit rate debuff for 2 turns. Not the best A1, but I have heard if you do a decreased crit rate on bosses, it actually prevents them from critting. Not exactly sure if that's like accurate, but maybe something to look into, and if that's the case, that actually makes this A1 pretty good. And yeah, so booking it would make it 50%. Not sure if I said that, but on the A2, Get Behind Me places a shield buff on all allies equal to 20% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns, and you can drop this down to a 3-turn cooldown and increase the shield with the books. So really cool. I like the fact that the shield is based off of his max HP. You're going to be stacking HP regardless for this champion, so you can actually make the shield pretty decent, and it being on a 3-turn cooldown just makes it a very good support type of ability. His A3 is actually what I like about him the most, which is Beast Escape. Places a 30% increased speed buff and 50% increased accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns, and you can drop this down to a 3-turn cooldown. The big reason I like this so much is speed and accuracy are probably very, like, not probably, but are very good buffs to have, and with this combination, it's just a very unique combination. You don't see speed accuracy in a lot of champions, so 2 things that maybe you're lacking in your allies that you can increase passively with this guy by using this ability. So I think just a great addition as a support champion. And then you have Delicious Giblets as his passive, heals the ally with the lowest HP by 10% of their max HP at the start of this champion's turn. I wish it was his max HP, but understandably that would probably be a lot of big heals, and they probably just didn't want that. So it's a nice passive to have, nothing too amazing or great though, so just a little bit more passive healing, probably like a lower version of Syl pretty much. But overall, not a bad epic to get. I actually don't have one. I do want to kind of get one though, so we'll see what I'm opening this weekend. The next one is actually going to be Biggin from the Ogren tribe. So Biggin, massive attack damage dealer for AoE type of clearing. So on the A1 we have a Head Splitter, attack one enemy, attacks all enemies 1 time if the first attack is critical. He is an attack based champion, so you're going to build him with 100% crit, preferably with crit damage gloves. But yeah, so pretty much making his A1 an AoE as long as you don't hit a weak hit. On the A2 we have Forward Charge, attack all enemies, has a 30 or a 50% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn, also has a 50 or a 70% chance of placing a 50% decreased accuracy debuff for 2 turns. Definitely not a bad ability. I like the whole AoE. Like I said, his whole kit is pretty much AoE. But this having the chance to add a stun or a decreased accuracy is always nice. Decreased accuracy, you know, is even warranted for bosses and stuff like that, like Ice Golem or Dragon. So yeah, this could be a useful ability. It could be very useful when going through dungeon waves though. If you're having issues with dungeon waves or Doom Tower waves, this is definitely helping with the type of CC and stuff like that. Then on the A3 we have Molten Slag, attack all enemies 2 times, decreasing turn meter by 25%, and then has a 30 or a 55% chance of placing a 30% decreased speed for 2 turns, and you can drop this down to a 5-turn cooldown. Once again, helping with waves and stuff like that by not allowing them to take their turn as soon as they usually do, and then along with the decreased speed, which is a very good debuff to pretty much get your people rotating through before the enemy attacks. Can be used in, like I said, dungeon waves, but can also be used in PvP. I've seen him used in Blender comps because all his abilities are AoE. He does very well at you know, doing damage to everyone at once. You have the stun possibly and the decreased accuracy, which can be very good if you land those. And then you have an aura for increasing ally accuracy in dungeons by 90. So that could be a good aura for progression and stuff like that if you aren't like quite hitting those accuracy caps, but overall very good at solo farming, or it could be your farmer for campaign and stuff like that. So overall though, a really good champion. So next we have Lizardman, and we're going to go ahead and look at Aox. So Aox the Rememberer is a support style champion, and actually brings a lot to the table. So first we have the A1 Feathered Staff, attack one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 10 or a 30% chance, if you book it, of placing a 5% poison. So strong version of poison, and this is going to be placed for 2 turns. So nice passive A1 that can apply a pretty decent debuff, which is always good. You have the A2 Lore of Restoration, attack one enemy, heals all allies for 10% of their max HP, and heals each ally by an additional 2.5% for each debuff on the target. He's already placing debuffs with his A1 passively. You have to take into account drop attack, drop defense, weaken, so that can really actually start to stack up, and the heal can actually become pretty decent. Then we have on the A3, Weight of Aeons, places a 50% decrease attack debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, also has a 75 or 100% chance, if you book it, of decreasing each enemy's turn meter by 20%, places a 30% decrease crit rate debuff on targets for 2 turns if they have 50% or more turn meter after the turn meter decreases. So an AoE decrease attack is always a good thing for survivability, and he is all about survivability with his support type role. And then you have that decreased crit rate possibility if they are going to be taking their turn soon. So this is also good because you're even stacking more debuffs for his A2 to heal additionally. So this can possibly put down 2 debuffs. His A1 can possibly put down 2 debuffs. So you're getting that additional healing by having those 4 additional debuffs on the target. So really, really good. Then on the passive, we have Steward of Time, increase the duration of 2 random debuffs on the attacker by 1 turn when attacked, and it occurs once per hit. People have used him, I believe, on Clan Boss, because this passive is pretty much like a passive Vizier, except it's like 2 random debuffs, so probably closer to Narma. But overall, it could be really good when trying to increase the duration of your debuffs. And then you have an aura, increase ally accuracy in Doom Tower battles by 60. This can come in handy every once in a while. There is the epic Lizardman secret room, so he can definitely take part in there. But yeah, overall, not a bad champion. Very good support champion. Helped me through faction wars, and actually helped me progress through some of the higher end dungeons for a while. So next we have Roxam. So Roxam, I'm going to try to go through this guy's kit pretty quick. It is a very large kit and very dependent on Veil or Perfect Veil. Alright, so on the A1, by the way, he is probably one of the coolest looking champions in the game, and he is an attack based Lizardman champion. So on the A1, we have Chroma Shift. Attack one enemy has a 50% chance of filling this champion's turn meter by 10%. You can buff that up to a 60% chance with books. And then also has a 60% chance, if booked, of placing a Perfect Veil buff on this champion for 1 turn if this attack is critical. Once again, attack-based champion, you're going to build 100% crit. And his whole kit is reliant on Perfect Veil or Veil. So it is quite important. Usually I would say this A1 is pretty bad, but because his kit is so dependent on a Veil, Perfect Veil, this is actually a pretty important A1. So on the A2, we have Jungle Ambush. Attack one enemy, fills this champion's turn meter by 50%. So he will be taking a lot of turns, but here is where the Veil, Perfect Veil stuff comes in hand. So if you have a Veil or Perfect Veil, you have a 100% chance, if booked, of placing a stun when you attack a target. If you do not have the Veil or Perfect Veil, you will actually place a Sleep instead, and then will place a Perfect Veil buff on this champion for 2 turns after attacking if you do not have Veil or Perfect Veil. So pretty much you're going to want to try to start out with a Veil or Perfect Veil from like a Rector Drath or a Duchess or something like that, but if not, you will get a guaranteed Perfect Veil from the A2 as long as you're not under 1 already. You have the chance to Perfect Veil possibly with the A1, but then we go on to the A3, which is I think what he is known for, which is Flicker Steps. So he has 2 conditions. So if you're under a Veil or if you're not under a Veil. So if you are under some type of Veil, it will attack all enemies, being an AoE ability, and has a 100% chance, if you book it, of placing the big decrease defense and a big weaken debuff, and then you'll decrease the cooldown of your A2 skill by 2 turns, which is pretty big. Now, if you're not under a veil or perfect veil, you'll do the exact same thing, except you will only attack one target. So it makes this ability from an AoE if you're under a veil, and if you're not under a veil, it's a single target. So it's a pretty big difference. But if you do the single target one, you will then place a perfect veil buff on this champion after attacking. So all of his abilities have a chance to give him the veil or perfect veil if he happens to not have it, but you can tell that his kit heavily depends on it. So definitely keep that in mind with him. So combine him with someone that's going to veil him right off the bat. And then we have his passive. Chameleon places a block debuffs and a 25% strengthen buff on this champion for 1 turn and a 15% continuous heal buff for 2 turns whenever they receive a veil or perfect veil. So this includes himself, but also includes any other champions that are placing it on him. So overall, extremely cool champion. I like the fact that everything kind of meshes together with him, and everything is kind of reliant on each other. And then he has an aura of increasing ally crit rate in Doom Tower battles by 23%. I'm not a big fan of crit rate auras, but if you are looking for that, then he has it. Next is going to be a skinwalker by the name of Norog. So Norog, you should know by the raid commercials. He is the pig. He is an awesome champion, actually. Very simple, I guess, more or less, but very effective. So he is going to be a defensive champion. So on the A1, he has attack one enemy has a 40 or a 60% chance of placing a block active skills debuff for 1 turn if you book him. Honestly, I think his multipliers are actually pretty good because he hits pretty dang hard. But block active skills is actually a pretty good debuff on an A1 because it makes people default to their A1 skill as well, meaning most likely you're not going to get hit hard or nothing major is going to happen. On the A2, we have Ice Pillar. Attack all enemies, places a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. Once again, a pretty major thing, especially when it comes to like Doom Tower, where you can block buffs from like a Siffy or something if you're going through those Siffy waves and whatnot. And this can go onto a 3-turn cooldown and also hits really hard. But the unique thing about this champion is going to be his passive. So Thick Skin, so he's immune to stun, freeze, and sleep, which automatically makes him a candidate for PvP because you pretty much get around any type of CC ability. But then you decrease the damage taken by all allies that are under 1 or more buffs by 15%, so automatic passive damage reduction for everyone. But then decreases the damage taken by all allies that are under no active buffs by 25%, which actually makes him a very good candidate to be paired with Seer. I've seen a couple people use him in Seer comps in PvP, but also in PvE to clear waves. And then if you happen to get hit and Seer stripped all your buffs, well, you're going to be taking less damage because of his passive. So really cool combo. And then he has an aura of increasing ally defense in dungeons by 40%. So overall, a really good champion everywhere. You can use him in PvP due to the fact that you can block active skills and you can block buffs. You can use him in PvE in combination with Seer. Overall, though, he's just going to be an overall cool champion to help you progress. Oh, and even Faction Wars, actually, he was a pretty major player in there as well. Alright, so he was the only skinwalker. We're going to jump over to the last 3 champions, which are orcs. So the first one I want to look at is Dhukk the Pierced, or Duck. I call him Duke. He is going to be pretty much a magic version of Stag Knight, is what I call him. So on the A1, we had Mad Chopper. Attack one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 30 or 40% chance, if you book it, of placing a 50% decreased accuracy debuff for 2 turns. I love the decreased accuracy debuff. It's becoming more and more handy recently, so like the A1. On the A2, we have Lunatic Outburst. Attack all enemies has a 75 or 100% chance, if you book it, of placing a 50% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns, and then also has a 100% chance, if booked, of placing a decreased defense big version debuff for 2 turns on each critical hit. So what you want to do with him is, even though he is a defensive based champion and you're not really going to build him for damage, you do want to make sure that he crits in order to land that decreased defense. So you're going to probably look at putting crit rate gloves on him, even though you'd probably go like defense percentage or something like that, just to get that second effect of the decreased defense. And you can drop this down to a 3-turn cooldown. And then you have the A3 Shrieking Display, which is where he kind of veers off from Stag Knight. He's going to be placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn on target enemy, and also has a 75% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn on 2 random enemies. I don't like the random part, but it is what it is. And then places a 30% reflect damage buff on this champion for 2 turns, and an unkillable buff on this champion for 1 turn, and you can drop this down to a 4 turn cooldown. So there's a little bit of CC mixed in with his drop defense, drop attack, which is kind of good. And then he's also very useful in faction wars for this purpose, right? He's bringing a drop attack, a drop defense, and a little bit of CC with his provoke. And even the decrease accuracy for that matter. So really, really good champion. And then he has the aura of increasing allied defense and faction crypts for 31%, which, like I said, very useful in faction crypts, but I think he can be useful in most dungeon areas in general, just because of what he brings to the table with his kit. Next, we're going to look at Tuhak the Wanderer. So he was part of a fusion. I believe it was Vergamkar. I could be very wrong on that, but he is going to be an attack-based champion, and he's going to be like a turn meter manipulator and cooldown person. So on the A1, we have Unfair Fight. Attack one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 30 or 40% chance, if you book it, of increasing the cooldown of one target's skills by 1 turn at random. So not the best thing, just because it is 1 skill and it's at random, so it's not like you get to pick. And then increase the cooldowns of all the target skills by 1 turn instead if the champion has less than 50% HP when attacking on each hit. So him having to be below 50% probably isn't hard, considering he's an attack-based champion, so he's gonna get hit hard. But yeah, it's a little bit weird that he has to be below 50% to get these additional things, but it's like a risk-reward type thing, right? If he's squishy, you get a reward for him being kind of low. On the A2, we have Whirl of Battle. Attack all enemies. Has a 75 or 100% chance, if you book it, of placing a 30% decreased speed. So an AoE decreased speed is always a very good thing. Then also places a 30% increased speed buff on this champion for 2 turns. So you're decreasing their speed, increasing your speed. And then you'll get a heal. Heals this champion by 15% of the damage inflicted if they have less than 50% HP when attacking. So once again, getting an additional effect for being less than 50%, but this actually will heal you up a little bit based on the damage that you do, which you're doing in AoE, so you're actually going to do a lot of damage, probably healing you to full. So there's a little bit of self-healing in there. You can drop this down to a 3-turn cooldown. And then we have the A3 Clever Brutality. Attack one enemy, steals 50% of the target's turn meter, which is always a nice thing, but then has a 75 or 100% chance of placing a stun debuff for 2 turns. Steals 100% of the target's turn meter if this champion has less than 50% when attacking. So once again, a benefit for being low, and actually this is a huge benefit, because if you're stealing 100% of the target's turn meter, that means you'll be taking pretty much another turn before they even get theirs. And you can drop this down to a 4-turn. So overall, extremely good kit in terms of controlling. I actually used him in Fire Knight for the longest time, because you have like a A1 that's a 2-hitter, and then you have turn meter manipulation and speed manipulation on the A2 and A3. So yeah, overall, very good champion for Fire Knight in my opinion. And then you have his passive Iron Heart. Decrease the damage taken by this champion by 20% when their HP drops below 60%. So this does help him kind of sustain when he is at that lower HP level, so that he can get the benefits from his abilities and maybe possibly heal back up to full. Pretty much just buys you time a little bit. And then you have an aura, increase ally attack in all battles by 22%. A very useful aura since it is all battles, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, overall, a very good Void champion, extremely good in faction wars. I think he excels in Fire Knight. Now, I haven't tried him at the higher end of Fire Knight, just because all turn meter stuff is a little bit nerfed in that regard, because it's halved. So not sure exactly how well he would do here in the higher end 21 through 25 Fire Knight, but I think he could still probably hold his own. And then the last champion we're going to talk about is the Lord and God of PvP, and that is Warlord. So Warlord is a support-based champion. If you haven't heard of him, then here we go, because he is a ridiculous champion. So on the A1 we have Bludgeon. Attack one enemy has a 25 or a 40% chance of placing or chance of increasing duration of all debuffs on the target by 1 turn. So this is a pretty cool ability, but you can't really take into consideration of like it happening a lot because it is only a 40% chance. But it is nice when you can extend your debuffs on a target. So nothing too crazy on the A1, but it is a nice to have type thing. On the A2 we have Protection of the Gods, which he actually is. So you can drop this down to a 3-turn cooldown with a book, but you're placing a block debuffs buff on all allies for 1 turn, then placing a shield buff on all allies equal to 30% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns. So it being based on his HP is pretty huge. And then you heal all allies by 25% of their max HP. So the heal is going to be semi-low depending on who you have on your team, but the shield is going to be big, and it's a heal on top of a shield and block debuffs. It's just a crazy ability. Then we have the A3, which is pretty much what he's going to be known for, and it's Orcish Rituals. Attacks all enemies, has a 70 or 100% chance if you book it to put each target's skills on cooldown. Yes, that's right. You take a whole kit of a champion and you just throw it on cooldown right off the bat, as long as you have the accuracy to land this, obviously. And then has a 30 or a 60% chance to fully deplete each target's turn meter. So yeah, this is gonna be pretty big. You know, in PvP, if you're putting everyone's stuff on cooldown and you're taking everyone's turn meter, then they're pretty much done, right? And this happens even with Doom Tower waves. You can put everyone's on cooldown, and then, you know, take your turns without worrying about them taking or cutting in. So yeah, this ability is ridiculous in PvP, especially with the AI changes. Now that you can pretty much set up a PvP defense, you can make him use this 100% of the time when going first and stuff like that. So that can be really really big pain. And then you have his aura, increase ally resist in all battles by 80. You know, can be useful, especially in PvP if you're trying to, you know, get past that resist cap and stuff like that. But yeah, extremely good champion. If you don't have a Warlord and you don't mind burning some voids, could be worth it. But do remember, we do have probably the 2x void event next week, so just try to keep that in mind. But that is it for the 10 times champions. So we have the 10 times champion event, summoning event. We have the guaranteed champion, which is Helior, and then we have that summons rush going on with the Hurndig fusion, which you'll be able to get the additional epic out of. So yeah, we have a lot going on this weekend. If you guys have any questions, let me know down in the comment section below. I will definitely get back to you about anything that you guys ask. But yeah, hopefully you guys like this. I know it's a longer video, but I like to go through everyone's kits and let everyone kind of know where these champions are being used in case you're newer to the game and stuff like that. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys have good luck summoning if you are going to be participating in any type of the summoning this weekend. And I will talk to you guys later. See ya.